where I spend probably most of my waking hours. And I'm a very happy Nationwide associate. I love working here. I love Nationwide. So I'm excited to have you to my second home. Our speakers tonight, we're excited to have some great speakers for you and about a topic that not a lot of people are really clear on. I think we generally think we know what mentorship and sponsorship is, but it's almost like one of those things where like you don't really know what it is until you've been there and you've done that. It's almost like boot camp. Like if you haven't been through military boot camp, you're probably just kind of guessing what it is, and that may or may not be accurate. So we wanted to hear from some folks who've had some success in their careers and who have leveraged mentorship and sponsorship to have that success and get their perspectives. Starting with David Arango, the Senior Vice President in charge of personal lines insurance products. And then we're going to have a panelist conversation with Steve Cooney, head of our financial services strategy, and Kathy Smith, head of executive development here. So we get the track of an executive. We'll get their perspective, Steve's perspective, and we'll get Kathy's perspective, both as an executive and as a person who is looking for executives and watching these people who are leveraging mentorship and sponsorship to get to where they want to go. And then we'll also hear from one of our board members, our president emeritus, Edmond Manrique, who is a consultant here, a project manager at Nationwide, an aspiring executive like many of us, and also, you know, in his second career. So he has advice both from his first career as an architect and now his career in technology project management. So I wanted to give just a brief overview of the evening, but I also want to tell you about NSHMBA for those of you who this is your first event. NSHMBA is a national organization. We have 40 chapters nationally, 28,000 members, and our local chapter is actually a fledgling chapter still. We're in a third year, and we have 170 members currently. We put 6 to 8 events on like this in a year. So if this is your first event, or if you're new to the chapter, please connect with us. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and we have a website. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our Nationwide associates that are going to welcome you from their perspective. First, our partner from the National Latino Alliance, president of that organization, the resource group here, my friend Alejandro Rodriguez.
Thanks, JJ. So I'm feeling woefully underdressed following JJ. He's looking pretty sharp. I was lucky to get a dress shirt on today. There was no way I was going to get a suit coat on. So as JJ mentioned, I am president of our National Latino Alliance, one of 20 associate resource groups here that we have Nationwide. We have more than 6,000 associates who are a member of a variety of associate resource groups. And National Latino Alliance is the group that kind of our umbrella organization that represents Latinos all over the country. And when JJ told me that he was going to have an event for NSHMBA, I thought, gosh, let's do something where we can do it in partnership as part of Hispanic Heritage Month. So we've had a busy day already today. We had a mentoring program that we've been putting on as part of our associate resource group. Many of the mentees in the program are here today. And we also had an event that was broadcast across the country. And now this, so it's been a long day celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month here at Nationwide. It is a pleasure for us to co-host this event here today. And I know that you will get a lot out of the speakers that we have this evening. And it is my pleasure now to introduce one of my colleagues in Human Resources, Priscilla Hammonds from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion.
Thank you, Alejandro. So I have the responsibility of providing the official welcome on behalf of Nationwide. So good evening to everyone. It's such a pleasure to see this room as full as it is. I'm so excited, and I'm sure JJ and Marcia and Amon are just as excited as well. But good evening, and welcome to Nationwide. We're certainly glad you're here this evening. We're certainly glad that you are part of the NSHMBA Columbus chapter. Nationwide has a long history in partnering with NSHMBA. We've done so for almost a decade now. We sponsor NSHMBA from a national perspective, and obviously from a local perspective. Our office, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, played a huge role in being a huge supporter When the chapter was forming, I remember some of those initial conversations that JJ had with our leader at the time, and we're just so excited to see this chapter in operation. You are in for a treat this evening. Our executive, David Arango, is going to share some great perspectives around mentoring and sponsorship. I look forward to hearing the panel discussion as well. And I will end with just a slight advertising piece about Nationwide, of course. As you know, we are a Fortune company. We have a very diverse portfolio. We have tons of products and services to offer to help protect what's most important to you. Obviously, that would be your family and all of your personal belongings. We also would love to help you build your wealth. So if you're looking for information around increasing your assets in your portfolio, Nationwide has a huge range of products to help in that area. Just a couple more things I'll say. We are such a community junkie in a sense. We pride ourselves on our culture of volunteering within the community. And so it shouldn't be a surprise to any of you with the different events that take place around the Central Ohio area that you see some Nationwiders involved. And again, that goes back to our culture because we care about our members, we care about our associates, and we care about our community. And I will end this with just remember, Nationwide is on your side. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Marsha.
Thank you, Priscilla, and thank you, JJ. So thank you all for being here today. My name is Marsha Gomez-Fiore. I am not only a Nationwide employee, I'm a member, and I'm also the Executive Vice President of the Nishimba Columbus chapter. And tonight, I'll keep it really brief, but tonight I have the distinct pleasure of introducing David Arango, who's the Senior Vice President of Personal Lines Product for Nationwide. He was recently named to this new role. Prior, he was the president of Titan and my boss, still my boss. But so I'm really proud to be here with him because as we're talking about mentorship and sponsorship, having worked for him for the past 3 years and shadow the leader, I can definitely say he's an authority on how to navigate your career, but also someone I hope I can emulate and make him proud because it's been an honor working with him for the last 3 years. So with that said, he has held multiple positions here at Nationwide. He has been the Regional Vice President of Nationwide Insurance, Vice President of Titan Product Management, and so forth. And he's going to go through some of his journey and career and how he has kind of managed his career and how he's gotten to where he is today. He is also an active member of the community, sitting on the board of the Delaware County United Way. And again, I'm honored to introduce him and be here with him tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Marsha. Well, good evening. I'd like to first thank JJ and Marsha for the invitation to speak tonight. I'm honored to be able to be with you this evening. What I want to do, as Marsha said, I want to share with you just my journey in leadership to share with you, because when I mentor people, I just share my own experiences once I understand what they're looking for, because I think some of the best things you can learn is learn from others, not to try to copy them identically, but to learn from others. I will also then share some thoughts on mentoring, and then we'll leave some time for some questions and answers that you may have. So if you think about something as I'm talking, just jot it down, and we'll have some time at the end. So to start off with, when we talk about my career journey, but it's all going to start with my family, because my family's first and foremost. I've been married now going on 27 years. My wife and I have 2 daughters, a junior in college and a freshman in college. So we are recently somewhat empty nesters and missing the girls, but enjoying being empty nesters as well. I was born and raised in Northeast Ohio, so I'm an Ohioan, and I was the 4th of 6 kids, 3 older brothers and 2 younger sisters. I got my undergrad at University of Akron, and when I graduated at University of Akron, I worked for Chrysler Corporation up in Twinsburg, Ohio, in a stamping plant for 2 years. I tell people it's a great education, highly unionized plant, and glad I did it. And I'm glad I got out because I've gotten a very rewarding career in the insurance industry, So I've been in leadership roles going on 30 years now, 28 of them in the insurance industry. So when I left Chrysler, I joined Progressive Insurance up in Cleveland, and part of my job that I took on was to be relocated somewhere else in the country. So I was hired knowing I might have to pick up and move, and within 3 months they came to me and said they had a temporary assignment in Tampa, Florida that turned out to be 6 years long. So we moved to Tampa, Florida, and spent 6 years with Progressive in Tampa. Left Tampa after 6 years with Progressive and joined Bankers and Shippers Insurance, which is a subsidiary of the Travelers, and doing non-standard auto as well in North Carolina, Burlington. Ended up spending 8 years in North Carolina. Bankers and Shippers was bought by Inagon, bought by GMAC. So we went through a few acquisitions, and that was a good learning as well, and also moved a couple times in North Carolina with that role. Left GMAC in 2001 and joined Nationwide. And I've been here ever since, going on over 13 years, going on 14, and it's been a great opportunity for me. And one of the things when I joined Nationwide, I can tell you the development that Nationwide puts into its associates is unlike any I've been with before. So they really do look to their associates to develop them both personally and professionally. So the steps that I've taken to prepare myself in my leadership journey, first and foremost, I've always had a vision for my career. So I talk to folks is, as you are working through your professional career, always have a vision. I've got a vision going out at least 10 years, really focus on the next 2 to 5 years of what I really want to do. So can I tell you when I was 25 years old that I was going to be, I wanted to be the senior vice president of market pricing for Nationwide Insurance? No, I knew I wanted to be a general manager, a leader over a group of people, leading a company, leading a station, whatever that may be. And so what I noticed was the folks that went to general manager roles had a lot of building blocks. They went to different parts of the organization. So in the insurance industry, I started off my career at Progressive in the customer service operations, anything to do with operations, call centers, in mail, out mail, all the products that Progressive had to offer, auto, commercial vehicle, all the power sports, motorcycles, boats, RVs. I was able to manage all that. So I kept on moving within Progressive to different units to begin to build those building blocks. I also realized that when I saw the senior leaders at Progressive, they might have had customer service, they might have had claims experience, finance, HR, but they went to different parts of the organization. So I tell people is what I did is I tried to continue to build my building blocks, because as you move up as a senior leader, use the pyramid as an example, you want to have a strong base. Now, I also tell people, I love claims, I want to do claims. Well, that's great. So in a claims organization, are you going to do casualty and material damage and subrogation, stuff like that? So build that strong base within claims as well, if that's what your desire is. So I focused on that. Another thing I focused on is I noticed, or wanted to go back, I got my MBA. So I went to school at nights down in Tampa. When I was with Progressive, a lot of nights and weekends getting my MBA, and I enjoyed that. What I enjoyed about my MBA, and a lot of folks who have got it or working on it, is I was able to use my current work experience in the classes. I also was full of a bunch of classes with working professionals as well. So while I was a bit hesitant to start it, because it's a commitment, right? You're getting a commitment for 3 years. It actually turned out to be a lot of fun. And I enjoyed that experience, but that also helped me with my career development because it made me a better leader. I had a different perspective on leadership and a leadership skill set that I was building. Another thing I wanted to share with people is I took a lot of lateral assignments throughout my career. I've taken a lot more laterals and I've gotten promotion. So when I talk to folks, I talk about that is, quite frankly, I get discouraged when someone says to me, why you post? Well, it's a promotion. Or I talk to someone, I don't want to go for that job because it's a lateral. Well, I would encourage people, again, going back to that building blocks, that knowledge that you're going to build your career off of, the more experiences you have, because every time you go to a different assignment, it could be the same company. I've been with Progressive 13 years. I think I've had 7 or 8 jobs within that time, and a lot of them are laterals. This current job is a lateral for me, which is good. So I will continue to do laterals, so I encourage people to do that. Those who can, I also encourage people, if you're willing and able to move geographically. Because again, the different geographies that you might be in will bring different experiences. So we've moved a few times to Florida, a couple times in North Carolina. Thankfully, I've been 13 years here with Nationwide and haven't had to move, but now that my daughters are out of high school, that was one of the constraints that we had, but that might change in the not too distant future, you never know. And the other thing I encourage people to do, as I've done throughout my career, is I've posted for a lot of jobs I've not gotten. I've interviewed, and one thing I ask people to do, and I will be honest with you, 9 out of 10 times people don't do it when I interview somebody, is go back to the hiring manager and ask for feedback about the interview. And more people that do not, more than people don't do that than do. And I've done that. I tried to do that when I was, looking for jobs outside of the current company I was in, and even go back and ask, because they're going to give feedback. And that feedback could be, yeah, you didn't have this technical skill, you didn't have this experience, or it could be the perception they had of you in a certain part of the interview process. You might say, well, that's not me. I'm better in that area, I'm better with these interpersonal skills, wherever it may be. But then you got to reflect back and say, well, they had that perception. So if that's their perception, that's their reality. So I encourage people always, as you are interviewing for roles, go back and ask, and then take that feedback and help build your skill set. And one of the most important things that I tell people, and I believe I have, is as I've worked on my career, my skill set is focused on my current job. I've never looked ahead to see what the next job should be and not focus. So get results in your current job, and if you're leading others, build a good team. So one of the best things to do is get people that will be very solid. And when I run my operations, particularly when I run customer service operations, I tell my managers, I should be able to pull you out of your unit tomorrow, and your unit should run for 3 or 4 months without missing a beat for the most part, because if you've built your team to handle the daily interactions, they should be fine. So I try to do that, and building that organization around you is going to help you, because quite frankly, one of the best, the most gratifying things I have as a leader is to see my folks, my teams develop. And then the final thing about me, before I get into some mentoring, is I encourage people to never stop developing as a leader. So I've been leading in leadership roles about 30 years from now. I've got quite a few years still in front of me before I get to retire and go off and golf or whatever I'm going to do. I'm probably not golf, I'm terrible at it. But bottom line is I'll figure out something to do, is continue to develop as a leader. And what I've done over my career is every time I'm watching a leader, still do it today, that could be someone who's senior to me, a peer, people that work for me, I'm always observing how leaders are interacting in a certain situation. And boy, I love how Marcia handled herself in that situation, or so-and-so, I didn't like how they handled that, and I'm incorporating that into my leadership style. So I'm continuing to develop David as a leader. I like to read leadership books, but I'm not taking those leadership books to be the next John Maxwell or someone like that, or Warren Bennis or whatever. I want to be the best David Rango. But as you do that, and then I also try to take, at least once a year, go to an outside seminar. And it can be on leadership, or it can be on technical. What that does, it gets me away from the grind. And I know I get into the grind, I get in the office in the morning, I'm ready to go, I got a day full of meetings. When I go out to an outside seminar of some sort, and the outside seminar could be just dealing with a nationwide, just outside my daily routine, it gives me a chance to reflect back. So I encourage people to do that. So leadership is the proverbial, it's a journey, it's not a destination, and I truly believe that. So that's a little bit about me, so I'll give you a sense of how I'm wired and my career journey. It's been a great journey for me, and I'm still midway. So let's talk about networking and mentoring. So why would you want to mentor or network? Well, first of all, you'd want to get a mentor to help with your development. But that's only an assistant. Your mentor cannot develop you. You need to develop yourself. And then as a mentor, mentoring mentees, you want to make sure you're there adding some value to them. Again, every time I talk to a mentee, I really ask them, what are you looking for? Tell me about what your career is. What are some things that you're maybe struggling with or are feeling good about? Because again, I want to help give them the guidance that they're seeking for that time that they're interacting with me. Why else would you want to be a mentor with people? You want to be a known commodity. Let's face it. Within any business world, people need to know who you are. So I'll share, early on in my career when I was with Progressive, I had posted for a job in the different divisions. So Progressive had like 3 divisions down in Tampa at the time, so I posted for a job, and I didn't get it. So I went back to John, was his name, the hiring manager, to John. Why didn't I get the job? And we liked these skill sets, but quite frankly, didn't have experience in the agency side of the business that they wanted in. And he didn't really know me because I was in a different part of the business. So about 3 or 4 months later, an opportunity came up to take a lateral. So I lateraled over into that organization and got to know John, and John mentored me for a number of years. But he got to know who I was, so a year and a half later, an opportunity for a promotion came up. I posted for it and got that job. So again, it's because he knew who I was. He saw my work my leadership skills in action in his organization. As you also look at mentors, make sure you find someone who's going to be honest with you and give you that honest feedback. And sometimes you get feedback that might not be the funnest to receive, but you want someone who's going to give that honest feedback and then balance it too. There's a lot of good things that are going on. Here's what you did well, here's what you didn't. I know I go to people sometimes, particularly that work in my organization, is it okay for me to give you some feedback on if they were doing something, or a speech or something, and I'll give it. If they say yes, then I'll give it to them. They say no, it's okay. But most of them they'll say yes, and you want to get that. But give them honest feedback so they can help with their own development. And if you are mentoring, if you're a mentor, please go in and let them know what you're looking for. What specifically are you? I wouldn't have a laundry list because that'd be a little bit too much. But again, I'm working on how I can network better. I'm looking at talking about career advice. I'll go through the building blocks thing, whatever. So be very specific. Another thing I'd always say too is always follow up with your mentor. If you had a session, you go back and I'm going to go work on this. Well, sure enough, it's good to hear as a mentor that someone actually took it and worked on it. Again, it's their call to make a follow up with your mentor. And then network to build those relationships. That's the key. Don't network to find the next promotion. And I've seen people do that. They seem to be networking solely what's the next promotion, and they seem to bounce around, really not thinking about their own career development. And I encourage people is focus on your skill sets, your leadership skill sets, your technical skill sets, your industry knowledge, and the title will come. And I've seen people that focus, maybe get the title next promotion, and they get to a level that they really can't handle. They got moved too quickly or didn't have that skill set. And that's sad to see because they really struggle. And most of the time, particularly in leadership roles, as you move up the organization, those aren't training roles. Those are get in the role and run with the role. So I ask people to really focus on that. And then everyone in this room, you could be a mentor to someone else, right? So be prepared to give back. And I always make time for someone who wants to get with me and spend some time. And if I could help them at all, I would. Because again, I mentioned that story with John, the guy that I mentored with and worked with at Progressive. Well, when I left Progressive, I was actually downsized. I was removed from the organization and downsizing. And I called John. You know, part of my network, I knew John. And John hooked me up with Steve up in North Carolina with bankers and shippers, and within 2 weeks I had a job. So again, that was just that networking piece, and was I worked from networking with John to someday he's going to help me get a job? No, I networked with John because I thought he was a good leader, and I like what he did within Progressive. So you never know when you're going to need somebody. So part of that experience too was I want to make sure I'm always going to be available to help give others back. So people call me through networking or I don't know, a job or something, I try to make sure I help give them the guidance that I can to help them land something or make some connections. So I shared a little bit about me, and I think we probably have a couple minutes for some questions and answers. If you have any questions you have, I'd be more than happy to see if I can answer them. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Sir, I enjoyed your comments. In your own personal, professional development, when you, what do you think was probably one of the most significant moments of your life where you're in the valley of decision, and having that mentor really made all the difference?
That's a good question. So I've had some very good mentors over the years. You know, I was in a situation once where I was at a company and I was looking to leave that company. And I said, don't do it, but I was, hey, the people want to be nice, you know, a little bit pay bump and a little bit larger role. But I really wasn't enamored with that company. I had a mentor, so I sat down with my mentor and we talked it through, and he ultimately gave me the guidance is what's your long-term careers, the career aspirations, and that really didn't fit. So I turned that job down, which was a good thing for me because ultimately I can't complain about one thing with my career because ultimately it's gotten me where I am today. So I used him as a sounding board at a time where I really needed someone to have a sounding board with. And he didn't tell me what to do, he gave me guidance, and we totally talked it through. But I also knew him well enough to have confidence to sit down with him. So there's always somebody in your life that you've got that with, hopefully that you can sit down and talk about those things with.
Hi, thank you for your advice. As a college student, what value can you offer to, let's say, somebody in your position? You talked about giving value back to your mentor. What kind of value do you think we can offer somebody in your position? Thanks.
Well, so your value as you as being a mentor for someone else? Oh,
So as being mentees,
Yeah.
what value do we offer?
oh,
mentors?
well, a couple things. So, I remember well when I was in college. And I'll be honest with you, I'm an industrial management major, my undergrad. And I can tell you when I started working at Chrysler, oh, that's what that professor meant. The concepts, some stuff came back, oh, that's what they meant. So, because I'd never been in a real leadership role, management role from that before. But what mentoring can offer me is gives me time to help reflect and help others. I take great pride in being able to give advice and thoughts around what I've done. Again, I'm not gonna try to make you a David Arango. I want to make you the best person you can be, best leader you can be. So the value you bring is you bring in thoughts that give me an opportunity to reflect back and think about what I've done, how I can help support you. I mean, to me, that's very gratifying. Because I will share, and this goes back to my progressive days down in Tampa, probably less than a year. I was trying to make everyone a little David Arango. You know what? I like me. I get to work early, I'm gonna work hard all day, and I'm trying to think, why come down my work ethic, my perceived work ethic. And as it turns out, it sat there one day, and I was still watching her. Her name was Roxanne. I'm watching Roxanne, and she was on the phone. We had a call center. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, why do I want to make everyone me? One of me is enough, right? So, but what I can do is if I can impart some of my leadership on others and help them become better. So my job is to make Roxanne the best Roxanne she could be, and Marcia the best Marcia she can be as a leader, as a contributor. So that's what I get. I take great joy in meeting with people. I also like to meet people and learn people because you never know. I might be calling you someday and saying, hey, I need an opportunity, or I want to do something, or you just never know. We're going to bump into people. I was at one of the outside seminars I go to about 3 weeks ago, and I bumped into some people from the industry I hadn't seen in 20 years. It was great to get caught back up, but sure enough, one of them came up and said, I know somebody in Columbus who's needing a mentor. Would you mind spending some time with them? So I said, yeah. So this guy subsequently has called me, and we've got a meeting scheduled here in a few weeks to sit down and talk. So you just never know when you're going to bump into somebody.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. I have a question. Can you describe a moment in your life which was a challenge, and how you dealt with that challenge?
Yes, had a lot of them. So let me think of one that was probably one of the more challenging ones. So I shared this a few weeks ago at the National Nishimba Conference. Some of you might know that. So my last assignment at GMAC was a very challenging one. I took over our customer service operations, and they were closing down a facility. So I had about 550 people, and 60% were brand new. Within 3 months, because they thought a bunch of people from the other facility would move over, and they didn't. So I came in like in October, and they were shutting the facility down in end of December because of Y2K, and they didn't make the building Y2K compliant. So I ended up coming into something that I did not realize it was as bad as it was. So I had them, I said, I'll pass on it, because I was having a good job in product and marketing, I said. But the assignment was basically, we had to rebuild this organization, and it was already happening. We're letting people go. Long story short is, it took us 9 months to get ourselves back. So that by July of the following year, July 2000, we were gonna get ourselves back on, which we did. But the problem was, I worked 7 days a week pretty much, 12, 14-hour days. And I was getting up earlier every morning. Next thing you know, I'm getting to work at 5 o'clock in the morning and going on Sundays. That was before you had iPads and even PCs, that you could pull laptops. I go on Sundays to get all my desk cleaned up. Well, as it turns out, I was neglecting my family, right? So in May, roughly it was early May, I was a Saturday morning, I was getting ready to go to work, and I was in my briefcase, and my 4-year-old daughter took and hit my briefcase. So, because she said, Daddy, when I see that briefcase, you go away. I don't want you to go away. So that was devastating to me because I was neglecting my family and my 4-year-old daughter. So I had a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I'm thinking, geez, that's not what I want to be. As I mentioned earlier, right? I'm a husband and father first and foremost. Now, not to say I'm not going to put in long hours, but I had to balance that. So I was not professionally, but personally, probably at the lowest part of my career. And my wife was there too, because I wasn't at home with her. So we had a good conversation, we worked it out, and what I shared at the conference a few weeks ago was, she is now my barometer, and she will keep me honest. And she will say, David, you're doing too much. She knows to contact my assistant, puts on the calendar, whether it's an evening event or whatever. So when my daughters are playing volleyball and their game started at 4:30 in the afternoon, I had to be out of the office by 3:45 so I could get there. So that was, from a personal standpoint and a professional, a very low point in my life. So, but again, I've got a person, I tell people, have someone in your life that will tell you you're getting out of bounds. And then when they say that, listen to them. And so my wife knows she can call my assistant Cheryl and put something on my calendar if she needs to, and she'll tell me if I'm starting to get a little bit too far to one side or the other. All right, I think that's probably time up.
I actually have one question. Sorry.
You probably know the answer. That's not fair.
No. I'm curious, because you talked about this guy, John, and Progressive, and he's probably one that was kind of almost what some people say is also a sponsor. So there's a book by Sylvia Hewlett who said it's like, forget a mentor, get a sponsor. So how have you kind of done, because that seems a little bit more icky for people, that's the technical term, to get a sponsor, because, I mean, that's about your work ethic. So I guess your thoughts or point of view and maybe how that's kind of worked in your career.
Yeah, so it's probably a fine line distinction between the two. So you can have a mentor sometime who is going to be a one-time meeting. You might go to somebody for one specific need, have a one-time meeting, or a few meetings. There's mentors that you might have for a lifetime. And you meet with them, not every month, but on a regular basis. My longest term mentor has been my oldest brother. He's 8 years older than me, so he's still the mentor for me today. He's been mentoring since I was in college. So, but a sponsor, what you want to have is when you've got that relationship with people, and that someone who is gonna come to you and say, pull you aside, say, David, here's an opportunity I think you ought to be looking at within the enterprise, or even maybe potentially outside the enterprise. Someone who's going to come and say, look out for you. So they're sitting in a meeting, they may be thinking, a sponsor will say, you know what, that might be a good thing for David. Or you know what, I'd probably get David involved because this may be a problem for him, or pull him aside and say, here's some opportunities that might be out there for you. So a sponsor is probably going to be proactively reaching out to you and helping you guide your career, where a mentor may be a little bit more, okay, you come to me, we'll do that mentoring. But to me, if you've got a good long-term mentor, they probably evolve into a sponsor.
Great, thank you. Yes.
Well, thank you.
And I'll let you go now. Again, David, that was great. So we're going to go more onto that topic of sponsorship and mentorship. So I'd like to invite our panelists. And Alejandro Rodriguez will be moderating today.
Thanks, Marcia. Here at Nationwide, and I really appreciate what David was talking about, different perspectives and experiences, and I suspect, so we have not rehearsed this at all, but I suspect that our three panelists are going to give their own perspectives and experiences with both mentoring and sponsorship. And we'd like to start by having each of you, just as David did, share just a little bit about your career journeys. And why don't we just start here with you, Kathy?
Okay. Yes. All right. Great. I'm Kathy Smith. I lead talent management and executive development Nationwide. And my career David talked about vision. I thought that was great. And I think really early on in my career, I did not have a great vision for what I wanted to do. I graduated with a degree in journalism. And once I saw how much those jobs compensated, I went to graduate school at The Ohio State University and came down to Columbus. And I was getting a master's in education to teach. And I thought I would teach in high school. And while I was going to Ohio State, I worked at a hardware store, part-time, mixing paint. And it was a delightful job. I truly loved it. People were happy going to the paint department. While I was there, they asked me if I would be interested in going full-time, and they would pay for my graduate school. And so I did. And then I went into store management, and then I went into human resources there. And that's how I got into human resources. And even though I was going to get a degree in education, I ended up switching it to focus on adult learning theory, which was more relevant to the HR job that I had. And that was so I found my path, and I just started. It's somewhat opportunistic, but I think why it worked is I just embraced where I was. I didn't feel, that working the paint department was beneath me while I was in graduate school. I had fun with it. I enjoyed it. I tried to learn the business. I enjoyed the people around me, and they wanted me to do more of that. And so it really served my beginning well. But I ended up working there for almost 9 years. And then I went to Abbott Laboratories, and I did what David talked about. I looked at people I admired and thought, I started to think really what kind of professional do I really want to be? And I looked at the people I admired and what kinds of things they had done and just paid attention. And I ended up making pretty dramatic moves there. I went from HR, I went and ran a product with a P&L, a brand. And then I came back, and when I did that, I was in HR management, I took a step down to do the P&L job. It was actually a step down from where I was. And when I came back up, I came back into HR at a level above where I left. So it was like a double, so I went down and then way up. And so you take risks, and there was no guarantee on any of those things, but they paid off. And every move was really, I was very intentional around what I thought it would do to make me the kind of professional I wanted to be, not the logical move. When I came back into HR, they wanted me to go into kind of a role I'd been in before at a very high level. And I took the role I hadn't been in before that they didn't recommend, which was to lead diversity there. And I loved it, and it was phenomenal. And so just all kinds of, you got to listen to your own voice along the way. But I've been here 9 years, did HR business partner work, and now do this, and feel very fortunate.
Thanks. Shall I jump in? Awesome. Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Cooney, and I'm so thrilled to be here. It's the first time I've had a chance to hear David's story and Kathy's story as well, and I find them both very inspirational, and so I think you're going to see some common themes really quickly. I have the privilege of being the head of strategy for Nationwide Financial. Priscilla mentioned earlier that in addition to all the wonderful personal lines products that we have a series of wealth management products. And it's my responsibility to make sure that the business has a clear focus on who our customers are, what value we're providing, and how the business aligns to deliver that value so we're better than the competition. And so if you're studying your MBAs and you've done your strategy course or doing advanced strategy courses, I am fortunate to wake up every day and think about strategy for a Fortune 100 company. And my journey to Nationwide it's taken me across the globe. I'm originally Canadian, started off as an attorney, decided quickly that I didn't want to be an attorney. I loved learning about law, and JJ and I have that in common. I don't know if they know that about you, JJ, but we are recovering attorneys. We've seen the light. From there, I did my MBA in Europe, so I wanted something very, very different from where I was from, so I sought out the unknown. And it was the best experience I ever did. I literally liquidated everything I owned, put it into everything I owned into one bank account and 2 suitcases, and went off to see the world. And from my MBA in Europe, I had the privilege of working in Europe for a few years, seeing Europe completely, and then finally a Canadian insurance company gave me a phone call and said, hey, we have something for you to do in your hometown, Toronto. So I thought, great, I'm coming home. After 18 months of that, they said, we really want you in Boston, and that was the beginning of my American journey. And so I had the privilege of working in Boston for an insurance company where I took a lot of lateral moves to eventually become the head of strategy for Sun Life Financial in Boston. And from there, I got a call from Nationwide saying, hey, we hear you're doing good things, so maybe you want to come here and do good things for us. So I've been at Nationwide for 2.5 years. I've been in Columbus for 2.5 years. And I'm still in love with both this great company and this great state and great city.
Good evening, my name is Herman Manrique, and my journey is a little bit different, well, a little bit similar to Gabby's, in that I was in a different career. My undergraduate degree is in architecture. I practiced architecture for 4 years before going to get my MBA degree. And then once I got my MBA degree, what I was looking at is there was a joint degree program that was available. The first leg of the MBA program, or the joint degree program, was the MBA portion. And so I really liked what I was learning in business school, and I wanted to take more classes. In order to do that, I had to drop the architecture option. And one of the things that I had seen as, I had done, as I had worked in the industry, in the architecture industry, is that there's not many architects that have a very good business mindset. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to learn more. And once I got the degree, the MBA degree, then I went to work at another architecture firm. But this time, within about 2 years, I was asked to be a partner at the firm. And I was a partner for about 7 years before I started looking at other options. And for me, it was more looking at the industry, looking how where the architecture industry was headed. And to me, there were a lot of different signals that just pointed to that it was time for a change of industry. And I was looking at my options, and that's when I've been a member of Nishimba for 13 years now, and I've attended many of the different conferences over the years. And I've been very connected to the business community. And it was at one of the conferences that I was recruited for to work at Nationwide. And you'll hear me talk a little more about mentorship and sponsorship and how that affected my change. But having that opportunity allowed me to make the change into a different industry. And it's been great. It's been, I've been with Nationwide now for 3 years. I'm a consultant in the IT project management field or side, and it's been a great experience. The company, architecture firms don't grow to the size of over 30,000 employees. There are some through mergers and acquisitions that are pretty large, but none that I know of that are at this size. So it's very good to see the perspective of how a company that is of this size takes care of its employees. And so that has been something that's been very encouraging.
Thanks to the three of you. Kathy, you alluded to learning from other people. So I wonder, for the three of you, what role has mentorship or sponsorship played in your career progression?
Routine.
Yeah. And so it's been evergreen, right? I look at the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. As a sponsor is someone who will put their credibility on the line to advocate for you. That's really what they're doing, right? When they have some authority to do so, or some influence, it might be the position or just their personal credibility, whatever it is, but there's someone who can make something happen, and they're willing to put their name behind you. So when, what is it, people, when they do that, it's tremendous. And I think David said it well, that sometimes those sponsors come from mentoring relationships that you've had, and I've had, I've worked for, my direct leaders have been tremendous through my whole career, and so I feel somewhat lucky, but I also think there's a mindset around why I think that, right? Why do I think almost every leader that I've worked for has been phenomenal in some way? And I learned this from my little brother, who's a mentor for me. I watched my younger brother has been successful, top of the class of Georgetown, top of his class at Stanford. He's just this little rock star. And I watched him, even in high school, I would see him do things, and I would just think, wow, where does this come from? Where he's so influential. And what I saw was he really approached every person, no matter what level they were, you know, with whatever hierarchy he was facing off to, whether it was at school or in the workplace, as he had this mindset, I can learn something from this person. And he really looked for this thing I can learn from them. And it was very overt and conscious. And when you do that, when you engage with everyone, like David said, I love to teach, I love to share. It's that subtle thing that it pulls people in, they want to help you, and that in of itself is the beginning of sponsorship. And so when I took on that mindset, I've had a lot of people really be wonderful advocates for me in my career. And all of those people I've also looked to very strongly as people I'm just trying to learn absolutely everything I can from. So very two-way.
So so clearly mentors and sponsors have been very important to my career, and they still are important to my career. And I like to use a sports analogy. I think of my mentor as my coach, and I think of my sponsors as my fan base. And so I spend most of my time, you know, and there's interplay between the two of them, because of course your coach is your fan, a very, very, very important fan. And I am always focused on my coaching relationship, because we're very clear that I have this mentoring relationship because I want to get better. I believe that my coach sees me and is a good mirror and shows me who I am and knows how to get me to the next level in terms of whatever I'm working on. And what I think of as my sponsors, those are the people in my career who have seen me perform well and perform consistently. And because you do that, they do put their credibility on the line. And I've not heard it articulated that way. And I think that's exactly what a sponsor will do. A sponsor will represent the quality of your work, and they will give you opportunities to do better work. But the bottom line for both your mentors and your sponsorship is, we say it's a two-way street. It is not a two-way street. You are doing the heavy traffic and doing the heavy lifting for most of it. Your sponsor will meet you halfway, but your sponsors you really got to deliver for your sponsor, because they're putting their trust in you. And so it's something that you have to do not just once, you have to do it continuously. You have to continuously deliver and deliver and deliver. And if you do that for your sponsors, I think doors and opportunities open that you can't imagine. And to put it in a personal sense, the person who hired me for my first in-job insurance, Phil, is still my mentor. He is the reason I went into an insurance. He is the reason I moved from Toronto to Boston, and ultimately he's the reason why I ended up at Nationwide, because he counseled me on what he thought was in my best interest, even though that meant me leaving the company he was working with. And so clearly it's a value, it's a relationship embedded on trust. And so I think you can go beyond your mentor, your sponsor, and then ultimately your friend.
For me, once I graduated from college with my architecture degree, I sent out about 200 resumes. Now, I didn't receive one response from those resumes. And that really opened my eyes to the importance of networking and getting mentors on your side. And one of the things that was really evident to me was that, with me, I have a very culturally diverse name, Herman Manrique. So, people see that on the resume, if I have the accent, if I don't have the accent, whatever it is, it's still something that is different. So I found it very difficult at that time. This was about over 20 years ago. And I found it very difficult to really be able to at least get a moment with some folks. And it was only through a family member who introduced me to someone who became my mentor that I was able to then get a lot of doors open for me. And this person helped me get my first job, my second job, and my third job. And I didn't even know he helped me with my third job, but he did. and you know, he became my sponsor just because of that relationship that we had. And again, it's about delivering, it's about showing up and showing what you can do for yourself, and to also make their word more valid, because once they're suggesting you for a position, or you know, speaking about you when you're not even there, if you then show up and show, you know, the goods, then you will have a sponsor for life, pretty much. So that's one example. The other example is when I was making my career transition from architecture into the insurance industry into Nationwide. And to me, I was at a point where I knew where the industry was going, but I wanted to look at different options. And I started talking to somebody about a year before the national conference, because I know that the national conference for Nishimba is a very good opportunity to make a career change or to connect with different companies. And I started to talk to him right after the last career fair, and we started meeting, and he actually runs the Career Management Center there at the national conference. And he met with me, I would say at least 10, 15 times before the national conference, and helped me every, you know, along the way at every step. And he really helped guide me into how to target my resume so that it would be more visible to companies, and how these skills that I had built up over the years would be more transferable to other companies. And I think for me, having that help really made me more marketable and more visible to Nationwide. So I really appreciated that. So again, keeping in mind who's your mentor, and you know, his character and the way that he built things up for me, it was really, really helpful in making that transition. And we have a really good relationship, and right now, every time I go back to the conference, I volunteer at the Career Management Center, and I give back as much as I can by mentoring others.
So I'm curious, as I was listening to you speak, I was wondering about the nature of the mentoring relationship. Was it more formal, more informal? And to your comment, Steve, about not being a two-way street, is there a difference in how you manage the relationship if it's formal or informal?
Go first. So I'm gonna waffle on my answer, I guess, because I think it's a little bit of both. I think it can start off as informal, but I think the more formal you make it, the more you're going to get out of it. And I think the more your mentor is going to get out of it, because you provide clarity on what you're trying to achieve from the mentorship. So I believe you formalize it, and formalize it. Be clear about what you're working on. Be clear about why you think it's important to work through these things. Validate they think these are worth things working on. And then get into a regular cadence, whatever that right cadence is, to meet with that leader, and so that you can monitor your progress. So I do believe in formalizing it. But as you do this, right, I mean, this stuff is you're talking about you, you're talking about your leadership. You're usually talking about the softer side of leadership. You're not talking about technical skills. It's the non-cognitive skills. It's how you show up and are perceived at work. And so that goes to the core of who you are and your character as a person. So even though it's formal, it's very personal.
I agree, and it depends on the mentor. Some relationships will be more formal, and other relationships will be very personal. So it really depends on who you select, and keep in mind that anybody could be a mentor to you. It doesn't have to be just folks that are in higher level positions that you aspire to be in. Every person that you meet can be a mentor to you. So just keep that in mind.
Build on that.
So building on that, one of my mentors I've had for probably going on 20 years now was the secretary to the top executive in human resources, right, at a Fortune 100 company I was at. And, you know, I still meet with her a couple times a year. And what she did early on, right, was help me understand and be not as intimidated by that senior context and those people and just understanding some of the dynamics. And it has been, to this day, been hugely influential. But I think the piece that around sharing with anyone, whoever you're trying to help you, sharing what it is you're trying to make progress on and having some clear goals for yourself. People can't help you if you're not clear. And it is one of the hardest things to do, is really articulate, where am I trying to go over the next 3 to 5 years, or what am I trying to learn? You don't always have to be about the destination. It can be the capability that I'm trying to expand, or the kind of leader I'm trying to become, but be really clear about what you're working on, and you're right, lots of voices can help you.
If someone is seeking a sponsor, what advice would you offer to them? And what are some things to avoid or some common pitfalls that people might make when they are seeking a sponsor?
I think one of the important things is, what are you looking for in a sponsor? And if you have that list of items in your mind, how are you already acting that way? So that when you reach out to this individual, you already have some of that background with you. I think it's very important to already be emulating who you want to be like, because if you're not emulating who you want to be like, that sponsorship may not work the way you think it will work. And the other thing is to keep in mind that for somebody to get to the level where they're a sponsor, I see a sponsor as somebody, again, who will speak about you when you're not in the room, and will promote you when you're not in the room. And to get to that level of sponsorship, you really have to build that up. It's not going to be something that happens overnight. It's not going to be something that you can just walk up to somebody and say, "Can you be my sponsor?" You really have to work at it. So keep that in mind.
This is something I've probably seen a lot of good examples of, poor examples of people gaining sponsorship. And one of the big lessons is, don't just, you're right, you can't go up and ask for it, and you definitely don't want to just have one. Okay, so this is a lot of people will have a leader, right? I've been lucky enough to work with leaders who advocate for you, but if that is your only sponsor, it's almost a guaranteed recipe for failure at some point. Because what happens when you have just one is that person may be this tremendous champion for you, and you're listening. I'm awesome. They're telling me I'm awesome all the time. And you tend... Okay. I think you've got it. You tend to get an overinflated view of yourself, not to really see all your weaknesses. And so when that next leader comes in and they're not automatically sponsoring you, people get defensive. They start to go on the attack, and how dare they not see my awesomeness? And when you have multiple sponsors too, and mentors, but you're getting many voices, right? And you're getting feedback, and you're building relationships, and you're seeing yourself from many different perspectives. And so when change happens, you're more open to how you might need to adapt. You're open to more of the reality of how you're perceived, and you have more voices to maintain that continuity of your sponsorship, because there's multiple people at the table who say, I know what he wants to do, I know what he's been working on, and I feel confident that we can continue to support him in that direction. But one voice is always a mistake.
And to build on both these comments, first of all, you never want to be single-threaded in anything. Organizations and people change quickly, sometimes overnight, so you want to be diversified in your sponsorship. Be well diversified. And in then finally, in terms of like how you get sponsorship, I'm a firm believer is you earn it, and I think you earn it in two ways. One, whenever you had an interaction with people who are potential sponsors, ask for feedback. Show them that you're coachable and that you want, and the lesson on feedback is you probably have to ask 100 times before a stranger will give you honest feedback. You'll probably get the first 99 times will be okay. It's finally they'll get to that point, that was really great, but have you thought about doing this differently? And that's what you want, because that's what will make you better. So ask for feedback from your sponsors. And then finally, ask yourself, what can you do for your sponsors? Because leaders love it when you come in and say, hey, I understand this is going on in your world. I think I could do X. Any chance we could work on that together? So don't just it's always clear what your sponsor can do for you. What's not so clear is what you can do for your sponsor. So help your sponsors see that.
And I'll just add one more thing to this, because it can sound daunting, this idea of having multiple sponsors and all these relationships to manage. But in my executive development role, I have seen people do what he just described, which is, I've thought about where I want to go, and I've identified people I could learn from. I meet with them. I tell them what I would like to, what I'm working on, what I'd like to do. I ask for feedback, and sometimes it really takes one meeting where somebody will start to use their voice in support of you. It may not be full sponsorship, but it's the beginning of sponsorship, and it can happen from one meeting. So it's not always huge.
And I just wanted to add a little something on there. And be open to receive that feedback. And understand that when you have somebody that is honestly giving you feedback, that is like gold for you. You should really, that should be somebody that you should seek out as a mentor, because somebody that can give you that honest, very direct feedback, not, nothing that puts you down, but something that's very direct and to the point, that's a mentor you want for life.
So I just want to bring our panel discussion to a close. As I'm thinking about what each of you are saying, there are three words that keep coming back in my mind. One is intentionality. So it's a very purposeful and disciplined approach to both mentoring and sponsoring. Another word is relationships, and making sure that you're establishing strong relationships with your mentors or your sponsors. And then the third one is vulnerability, being really open to growing and looking at yourself. So thank you, all three. Would you join me in thanking my panelists? And it is my pleasure to turn it back to JJ to wrap up our program.
Thank you so much. One more round of applause for our panelists, please. So I don't know how much of you, maybe by show of hands, did any of you do a little bit of reading or research in anticipation of coming on mentorship and sponsorship? Show of hands. A little bit, all right. Well then, hopefully the folks that raised their hands will agree with me that, of the reading I did, none of it was even close to as good as what I've heard tonight. So, I've read HBR articles that pale in comparison to what you heard tonight. So I hope you took it in. I hope you internalized it. I hope you took notes. I was taking notes on my phone. I was not texting. A lot of notes. And really, like I said, sometimes the majority of us in this room have not had the opportunity to pass it on and be a sponsor. And some of us don't even know when we're being sponsored. But understanding how that works and understanding that, what David said, that it's just, putting yourself out there and working hard. And I like what Steve said, that you have to deliver over and over and over. If I'm going to put my name out there for somebody, I'm going to want to know that they're going to be somebody who's committed and somebody who's going to deliver. And then I would love to put them in an opportunity to be successful. So I hope you took notes. I hope you got something out of it. I know that I got a lot out of it. I'm always, this happens time and time again, where I just feel so fortunate that we have the opportunity to have the folks we have come and speak at our events. And that, somebody asked me at the beginning of before the event even started, where do you get your speakers from? And the answer is it's through relationships. It's through finding folks who are mentors to us, people whose perspective, the folks who are involved in planning the event that we respect, people who have really planted a seed in our life and that we've seen blossom, folks that we think are absolutely worthwhile and passing on to you. So again, I hope you enjoyed it.